founder of the first academy in the Western world and one of the greatest and most influential figures in Western philosophy. A man whose thoughts and works have far outlived himself. Sadly, we don't know too much about his early life for certain, but we do have educated guesses. From what we could gather, Plato was born into a wealthy, influential Greek family somewhere between 429 and 423 BC in Athens. It is thought that his father... God, more pronunciation crap. I believe it is Audison, was a descendant of... Carteros, the ancient king of Athens. Plato's mother, Parathione, was a descendant of... I believe that is Solon, the Athenian lawgiver. It is thought that Plato had two brothers and a sister, but Plato's mention of them in the Republic never specified that they were his brothers, so some believe them to be his uncles. Nevertheless, with such a pedigree on both sides, it looks like Plato would have had a rather well-off life, to say the least. With his family connections, he was educated by only the best of his time. With the education he received, a fire was struck within him to gain more and more knowledge and even teach others. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we get into the philosophy bit, a little fun fact is that Plato's name isn't actually Plato. You see, his true birth name is... Aristocles? Okay, I think the horrible pronunciation of the names are over now, maybe. The name Plato was a nickname from his wrestling coach, which translates to broad, or his broad chest and shoulders. Now we can't get into my favorite part just yet. As a side note, Plato cannot be separated from Socrates. You see, Plato was a student of Socrates, and in just about all of Plato's writings he spoke through Socrates in the dialectic style, which is two or more people debating on a subject. That's also why it is so hard to figure out what Socrates himself really believed, because just about everything written down was from Plato, because he never wrote anything down himself. It is thought that in his earlier writings, Plato portrayed Socrates as he truly was, and later he projected his ideals onto Socrates. Now, with that side tangent out of the way, we can finally look into what this man thought. Let us begin with metaphysics. Metaphysics is an offshoot of philosophy, which tries to explain the true nature of the world around us. For Plato, it was the theory of the forms. The theory is a rather complicated one to be sure, but I can give it my best interpretation. The theory states that there is our world, which is imperfect, but there is a second unchanging perfect world of forms. These forms are the ideal perfect versions of things, ideas, concepts, and other such things in our world. So in the world of forms, there is the perfect apple, the perfect justice system, the perfect love. Our world is merely an imperfect copy of these perfect things. Plato said that we should try to understand these perfect ideal things to help us guide us through this imperfect world. Now, I don't think that he meant for this imperfect and perfect world to be taken literally, but there is true food for thought behind seeing the differences between the world as it is and the way it should be. Not only that, but the perfect world would be different for everyone. For an example, let us take the justice system. On one end of the extreme, you have the you are put to death for the smallest infraction. You stole about $50 pickpocketing someone and were caught. Well, now you get to go to the gallows. On the other end of the extreme, we have the we do not do anything unless your crime is especially egregious. Well, you did rob this man's car at gunpoint, and take it for a joyride, and almost hit a bunch of people, and then crashed it into a ravine. But you didn't actually hurt anybody, so you're free to go. Anyone of sane mind would know that we do not want either of this so-called justice, even though I assure you that there are fools that would argue for these systems. I believe the argument of forms to be a rather flawed one, unless of course I'm interpreting this wrong, which I very well could be. Plato is one of the founders of political science, and he also had the ideal state. Firstly, Plato thought of kings and rulers as any other profession. Only the best should be at the top, so a meritocracy. I'm liking it so far. Plato said that the best rulers are those who can contemplate the forms. I just went over the forms and what I think of them, so moving on. In Plato's utopia, justice would be the ultimate goal. But I already went over the very subjective, perfect justice system. But on a bright side, Plato did say that women are just as capable of being leaders, so I suppose he was rather progressive on that front. Well, what about democracy? Plato was critical of it. He observed that people often don't think too hard when they cast their vote. This was true then, and it is true now. You need only look at the 2020 US election, and everybody with two half-decent brain cells to rub together can see this. For Plato, he thought that the ruler should be a philosopher king. As Plato said through Socrates, philosophers must become kings or kings philosophers. But this is of course a utopian thought, and as I said before, I don't necessarily think it would work. But his take on democracy is a valid one to be sure. These ideas I find to be rather lackluster, but I can see the meaning behind them. Flawed they may be, I understand where Plato is coming from. But I want to give you two of his ideas that I find to be objectively bad. Number one is a bit of a meme. Plato defined humanity as, well, featherless bipeds. This led Diogenes the Cynic, side note there might be a video on him, to barge into one of Plato's classes with a plucked chicken and said, "Behold, Plato's man." Now that one was rather funny, but the next one I find to be rather dangerous. The noble lie was designed to separate everyone in society into three groups: the workers, the military, and the rulers. The noble lie was to tell everyone that their souls were made with a mixture of iron, brass, silver, and gold. The mixture of these materials will determine what you ought to do with your life. Now, what I find to be so dangerous about this is that mainly once you are given a path based off what is infused into your soul, people would be stuck in the class given to them. Oh, you wish to join the military? Well, looks like you don't have enough silver in your soul. Looks like you're going to have to stay a small-time farmer, or a slave, or what have you. Upward mobility would be impossible for the people further down the totem pole. And it doesn't take a genius to understand that the ones at the top with gold seemingly infused into their souls would control everyone below them. Again, I could be misinterpreting it, so if I am, please let me know down below. I may have given Plato a good bit of flack, though I still believe he has some great ideas. I still think that he is worthy of admiration. I don't want to be like Nietzsche and say that Plato is a coward and that he's terrible and all that. I truly do not. I'm sure he was a good man and a great philosopher regardless of what I may say about his thoughts. And with that, I close. Take care.